I'm Tracy Ingram. I'm a STEM and STEAM virtual specialist for the Georgia Department of Education. I'm also a STEM lab and a GATE resource teacher at Len Lastinger Elementary in Tift County, Georgia. Today we want to talk about the question, why now? Is this really the time for people to be worried about STEM and STEAM education? We have several speakers that you're going to want to listen to. They have wonderful ideas for you, inspiration for you, and we're going to have lots of resources for you. At the end of the presentation, there will be a slide with a link to a Google Doc that you can access and make a copy of for yourself, and it's going to be full of resources with free lesson plans, free ideas for your face-to-face learners and for your online-only learners. So there's something for everyone, no matter how you're having to approach instruction at this time. So the first person you're going to hear from is Chelsea Jones. She's a first-year teacher. She is a wonderful young lady, a very impressive young lady, and I asked her to give me a list of questions that she has about teaching from a STEM approach in her first-year classroom. Before we hear from Chelsea, I want to go ahead and tell you, I know there are many people across the state who have the same questions she does. So don't be afraid to speak up and say, this is new to me, I'm just getting started, and I need some help. Because we're here to do this together. You're not alone. Chelsea's first question is, what really is STEM? She's heard of it, but she's not really sure what it is. So that's going to be the first thing we talk about in this presentation today. You've got several experts who are going to respond to that. Before we get to them, let me go ahead and say that for me, STEM is a how and not a what. It's an interdisciplinary approach to education with problem solving and critical thinking skills being at the forefront of everything that we do. We're teaching the Georgia standards by allowing students to solve a problem or answer a question that's important to them personally, something they can relate to, something your class decides they want to think about, they want to work on. And it might take you all year long to answer that one question or solve that one problem, and that's okay. It's something that they can dig deep in and build up their perseverance, build up their confidence in their ability to really break a problem down and find a way to solve it. And you can think about things that relate to that problem in almost every subject area. So STEM is not necessarily just about technology or just about engineering. If you're not comfortable with engineering or technology at this point, then start somewhere else. Start with a social studies standard or a science standard, writing, math, reading. Find a way to bring it in. Maybe you're really interested in life science, so find something that ties to that. Make sure you can bring your passion to it so they will feed off your excitement, and just find something to work on together that teaches them those problem-solving skills. And over time, your confidence will grow and you'll be able to start bringing in more engineering and more technology. But don't let those things put you off. No matter how you get started, just get started and let us know how we can help.
Hi, my name is Samuel Graham, and I'm the chair of the Woodruff School of Mechanical Engineering. I'm happy to be here today to talk to you a little bit about STEM education and why I think it's important. I'm fortunate to be the chair of the School of Mechanical Engineering, which is the largest in the country, with many great students. And this is something that inspires me every day. Every time I get a chance to go and meet them and see the energy that they bring, a lot of them come into Georgia Tech having had experiences where they have touched technology before, they have been creative, and they're eager to learn more. And so we're fortunate to have those students that come in. But a lot of times when we look at the innovations that we see in the country, a lot of times those are coming from people that have big ideas, that are innovators, and that see and define problems and learn how to take their basic science and math skills in order to solve those problems. This doesn't necessarily start at the college level. As I said before, we have these great students coming in the door. This has to start at the early stages of our educational system. And really, as I talk about this, what I'm really meaning is that this starts in elementary school. What we see in our students is really the fact that when you take science and math and apply it to something that the student is interested in, applying it where the student can be creative with it, it's going to stick. It's going to make more sense to them. This is something that we see directly at the college level. We have built something called the Flowers Invention Studio, where it's a makerspace that we have packed with water jet cutters, laser jet cutters, 3D printers, also graphical sewing machines. And what we tell our students to do is just go in there and create. It doesn't have to belong to a class. Just take the passions that you have, marry it with the things that you're learning in class, and just go be creative. And what we see is that we have excellent students that are coming out. I think students understand the concepts better. I think students are more passionate, and they have more confidence that they can go and create and be innovative. They've learned how to fail. They've learned how to succeed. They've seen that there are multiple solutions to certain problems. But the concept of moving in and defining a problem and then using your basic skills and your creativity to solve that gives you a sense of satisfaction, and it also is a learning experience that you often don't forget. And so what I'm saying today is that we have to start this at the early stages of education, meaning elementary school. This is the only way we're going to create and keep producing students that are going to be able to solve the problems and challenges that we'll see in the future. So I'm here today to say I'm a big proponent of STEM education starting in elementary school. I think you'll have better students. I think they'll be more engaged, and I think the material will stick for a lifetime as they begin to learn through experience. And so whatever you can do, please continue to include STEM education in your programming. And as you send them on to places like Georgia Tech, we'll continue to make better engineers as well as scientists, people that want to change the world through innovation. Thank you.
In thinking about why the need for problem solving and a STEM and STEAM approach is so important to the young people today, it makes me think about the difference in their life experience as opposed to the life experience I had as a child. Now, I was growing up in the 1970s in North Georgia on a little farm, and I feel like I had a very privileged childhood, even though neither one of my parents graduated from high school and my grandmother never learned to read. But they were great thinkers, they were great problem solvers, and they were fantastic at teaching me to observe closely the details of everything around me, make note, and use what was around me to solve my problems. They also were very big on telling me that you should never give up. You have to put your mind to it. If you really want to get through something, you don't give up and quit. You just keep thinking, keep taking that problem apart until you find a way to make it work. Now, after I was married, my mom went back to school and she got her GED. She went to technical school and got a certificate in business management, and I was very proud of her. But she had already played a big part, along with my dad and my grandparents, in giving me a STEM education before she ever went back to school. And I wonder about our children today. They're learning all the wonderful technologies, and they should. That's very important. We need them to know all the latest technologies so that they can get those future jobs that are so critical. But at the same time, at the elementary level, are we giving them the opportunity to problem solve in an authentic way that they can connect to on a daily basis so that they can build the problem solving skills that they need? If you think about, we always hear about the greatest generation, and the people they call the greatest generation were the ones that lived through World War II, and that was my grandparents, and they also lived through the Great Depression. And I think it has to be a part of what made those people so great and so admirable was the fact that they lived through so many struggles, so much deprivation, so many crises. And in that, innovation blossomed, perseverance, tenacity. They knew how to find a way when it seemed there was no way. They had a strength that can sometimes just seem bigger than life. And we're going through struggles right now, but it doesn't have to beat us down. It can just be one of those things, one of those steps and stages in life that builds us up. It makes us a little taller, makes us a little stronger, makes us a little better at teaching our children what they need to know. And who knows what they're going to do when they grow up because of the education that we give them today.
Hello everybody, my name is Chelsea Jones and I'm a first year teacher in first grade at Len Lastinger Elementary School in Tifton, Georgia. Some of the questions that I have about STEM is, first of all, what really is STEM? I've heard about it, but I really don't know a definition of it, so what is it? What does it mean? Another question that I have would be, what would STEM look like in my classroom? I know my students go to the STEM lab, but what exactly do they do, and how could I use what they do in the STEM lab in my classroom? Another question I have is, where would I get the resources and materials? What supports would I have to use STEM in my class? Where would I find the materials? Are there lesson plans? What do I need to incorporate? Another question is, what are the requirements for STEM in the classroom? I've heard my students talk about a STEM journal. So is that a requirement? How often would I need to do it? Just making sure that I can be the STEM teacher that I need to be and that I have enough knowledge to implement it effectively in my class. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Megan McFerrin, and I am a STEM Program Specialist for the Georgia Department of Education. There's so much that goes into STEM and STEAM learning, so it's pretty tough to define it in one sentence, but I will give it a try. To me, STEM and STEAM education is interdisciplinary, hands-on, provides real-world context to what students are learning, and most importantly, gives students the opportunity to show what they know through their own unique gifts and talents. STEM and STEAM education is more important now than ever. It helps students connect what they're learning to why they should be learning it. When students see how classroom content connects to real-world scenarios, problems, or future careers, they're more engaged, and engagement is so important during this time. Two terms have become buzzwords, and I'm sure you've heard them recently: synchronous and asynchronous learning. These two words have been around in STEM and STEAM education for a long time, whether we were using them directly or not. When I think of STEM and STEAM, I think of two different types of instruction. There's that direct instruction that has to take place so students understand the content. Then there's that asynchronous, that time where students go and work independently or in small groups to solve problems, express their creativity, and really apply the content that they're learning in the classroom. So I see so much of what STEM and STEAM has to offer being relevant right now to keep our students excited about learning regardless of what type of setting they're in.
Hi, my name is Allison Morgan, and I am the STEM Program Specialist serving 1st District RESA region in Southeast Georgia. If I had to sum up what STEM education is in a sentence or maybe two, I would say that it is a standards-based approach to teaching and learning that embodies problem solving, critical thinking, and especially where students are able to take their local context, so the business and industry that's there, community partners that are really important in their local or regional community, and infuse that with their content standards to create this really authentic learning experience where students learn more than just those content standards, but how to research and to problem solve with those concepts.
Okay, Susan, thank you for meeting with me today. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy, but I wanted to start off, if you would just introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been doing what you do, and introduce yourself to us.
Okay, I'm Susan Parsons. I am the academic coach here at Len Lastinger. This is my 33rd year teaching, and it is my 21st year of being the academic coach. So I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, I would say so. And most of that your time as an academic coach is primarily literacy, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I am in charge of the literacy, reading, writing, language arts. So that's my big goal.
Okay. So we're primarily trying to provide support and encouragement for teachers that are just getting started, whether they're a first-year teacher or whether they're somebody who's just trying to get started teaching from a STEM approach. And we know that one of the things we want them to really understand is that STEM and STEAM are interdisciplinary. They should be the thread that kind of weaves through and connects all the content areas. So we want students to be working to answer questions or solve problems that relate to real life for them, something they can really connect to, whether it's something they can see in their own schoolyard or their neighborhood or their home, something that they can really take to heart. And so we want them to be writing, reading, researching, collecting and recording data, making drawings, labeling sketches, all of these things, and keeping up a STEM journal while they're working on the process of answering that question or solving that problem. So one of the things that has come up is some teachers are afraid that they look at their schedule and it's jam-packed. There's not enough hours in the day. And they feel like, well, my curriculum, my county has said I need this many minutes for writing and this many minutes for this and that. And I don't have time to pull out a STEM block. And what I'm trying to make them feel confident in is that they shouldn't necessarily be pulling out a STEM block anyway. I mean, if a grade level is doing something special and it's a special event and they pull out some project time, there's nothing wrong with that. But on a daily basis, nobody's looking for them to pull out a STEM block. It should be woven through everything in the day. So what I wanted you to kind of speak about is from your perspective as a literacy coach and academic coach, if you walk into a classroom and you see a teacher has the STEM journals out or they're doing something related to this real life problem that they're trying to solve, I mean, what would your response be to that? How would you feel about that? And should it be a problem?
No, it should not be a problem. I mean, first and foremost, we teach the standards, and the standards are that's what should always be in the forefront of our minds. We have curriculum or resources that support teaching those standards, but they are resources. For them to be sitting there writing in their science journals, that's perfectly fine. I mean, because we use the workshop model anyway in reading and writing, and the kids are taught a mini lesson that day. They go apply it in whatever type of writing they're doing. And then if they finish that, then they can go on and do some other kind of writing, which could be their science journals. So there's a lot of ways to do it. You just have to be flexible. You know, I tell teachers all the time, you have to be flexible in your schedule, flexible in just your daily routines and stuff. There's a way to do it. It can be done. So yes, they can use any of the STEM projects and things. It can be woven into there. You just got to be creative and be flexible.
I love that word flexible, because with everything we've got going on right now with online teaching and everything else, I think we're all feeling that. And I feel like a good way that maybe sometimes people might forget is they've got to do their research part anyway. Why couldn't they pull a guided reading book that pertains to their problem they're trying to solve in some way? Do a little reading during guided reading. What about their read aloud? That kind of thing all works.
Yeah.
I think people are more comfortable with the math coach, because they know they're going to be, they feel like STEM ties so directly to math. And then they're somehow worried about the literacy coach not wanting her time taken up by this. But what I really want people to get is STEM may not say literacy in the little title, but literacy is a huge piece of it. It has to be to get the problem solved.
Well, if you really stop and think about it, your literacy affects all of your other content areas. So you have to have that in order to do the math, the science, the social studies, to be, whether it's the writing, the reading of it or whatever. So it still fits in there, even though it may not be part of that acronym. So.
That's right. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to make some folks feel more comfortable if they're trying to get started. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you do.
You're welcome. And if somebody's having an issue trying to fit it in or not sure, they need to go see their academic coach and talk with them and say, hey, I need to do this. Help me figure out. It can be done. You got to ask and be
That's
flexible.
right. That's right. Ask and be flexible. I think that's great advice. If you're not sure, don't just walk around saying I can't do it. Go ask how I can get it done.
Sure.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Hello, Miss Shannon. Thank you for meeting with me at the end of a long day of teaching. I appreciate you being here.
Hey, Miss Ingram, you're very welcome.
So go ahead and introduce yourself for us, please.
Hey, everyone. My name is Joy Shannon, and I'm a fourth grade teacher at Len Lastinger Elementary School in Tifton, Georgia.
And Miss Shannon, you teach all subject areas, correct?
I do. I am self-contained this year. I teach them all.
And your school is not STEM or STEAM certified?
You're not.
And you don't have a STEM coordinator that comes around and tells you what to do with STEM in your classroom?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so advice for teachers in that same situation who want to start STEM in their classroom, but don't have that guidance of a STEM coordinator, don't have a STEM certified school that really has it all mapped out. How do you bring the STEM approach into your classroom?
Well, honestly, the first thing I did was watch somebody else who is really good at STEM, and don't have a certification. And I just watched and saw the huge growth that the students made within her classroom and this fire that they had. And I wanted that fire. I wanted the kids in my class to be excited about science and engineering and designing and creating. And so I just did some research and saw the STEM approach. And I started off small. I didn't just do a shebang and embed it all throughout the day. I started as small as possible and just started in science and created some hands-on, minds-on learning activities within science. And then as I became more comfortable with that, I started growing it and embedding it throughout the day into other subjects.
Okay. Because, and I think that's great that you said that, but people don't have to feel like they've got to just be an expert day one out of the gate. So if you just take those small steps and start somewhere, if you find a real life problem that they can relate to and give them a question, a problem to solve, let them maybe help choose it, and then start thinking about that problem in the classroom. I know you're doing that for your whole grade level. For fourth grade has one problem that they're going to work on the whole year long. That's their little STEM project. So
Yes.
tell me about that a little bit, please, ma'am.
Last year, when we started talking about doing a STEM theme, we talked to our students. What do you want to see? And we talked about life science because we really wanted to focus in on those standards. And we talked about animals and producers and consumers. And they were like, well, I wish we could see some of these animals. They don't have these life experiences to see these things. So I said, okay, well, that's a problem. How can we fix this? How can we see these? And so we started in the research stage, and they looked up animals that they wanted to see, which we then talked about how that was actually a consumer and how it related to our standards. And they all, in their STEM journal, researched these animals and what they ate, because we have to have a reason for them to come to this area, and that reason would be for food. So we started with that. Then we planted we call it our food plot, and we actually planted rye is what we came up with as a grade level, because it would grow tall. And then we sprinkled corn. We had a deer feeder out there. One of the students said, well, what about frogs? Could we have a pond? So we had this teeny tiny pot that or bucket that we buried within the dirt right at that level. We put rocks in there because one student even said, well, could the frog drown? So they problem solved all of this by making sure we put rocks in there so that the frogs had a way to get out. And then we set up trail cameras that would go on and off when things came up to the food plot, and then we wanted to track it. And there was definitely some things last year that we saw for fixes. One of the students said, "Miss Shannon, the camera's not working." There was flashes that would flash at the nighttime. And the way we had placed the camera blocked what the animal was that we from being seen. So then we pulled that in as a problem. How are we going to fix this? How can we change the camera so we can see? And one of them said, "Well, we just need to change the angle." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" So just that one thing brought in so many different problems that we had to fix. And it was a great project. The kids were on fire for learning the entire year, and it was really exciting. And we're actually doing something similar this year, but we're making it even bigger and better.
Nice. So you don't have, I think one of the things that we want to make sure teachers understand is they don't have to have a STEM block in their schedule. It's the thread that weaves through all your content areas. It may be that you address you're addressing your math standards, your writing standards, your reading standards. I mean, you can pull a book in a guided reading group that pertains to your problem. It can be a writing prompt. I mean, it just sort of, it's like a thread that weaves together your entire day. Would you say that's correct, Ms. Shannon?
Absolutely. Yes, it is. It just threads through. There's not a specific time where I say, "Okay, guys, we're going to work on STEM now." We even talk about those connections that it makes, because they need to see that it connects and that the subjects cross. And that's what makes it important. And then it makes those subjects that to most people don't matter.
There you go. I love that. So what about STEM journals? How do you find time in the day for your STEM journals? Tell me about those.
Well, when
And what are you using? I'm sorry. What are you using for a STEM journal? First of all, just like a memo book?
Yes, I have some examples. I'm going to talk about it, and then I'll show you.
Okay.
First of all, if you have a project that those kids are excited about, and it can be the smallest thing, they want to write about it. They want a spot to put their ideas. So this year we have introduced our STEM project, which again will be the food plot, but like I said, we're making some changes because we want their ideas included. And so at the beginning, we started with, what do you want to see? So this is our STEM journal. It's a little composition notebook. This one's marbled, this one's red. We just did what we had. And they started with a list. So I'm trying to, you can see.
Okay.
That.
Okay, so, cool.
This student just created a list of the animals that she wanted to see and everything that they ate.
Wow.
So some students do list form.
A nice list.
This student did, I don't know if you can see that or not.
Okay, yeah.
And so I love that it makes it their own. I don't tell them that they have to do it a certain way. It's whatever way they want to map out what's going on in their brain.
Okay.
And then
they're also just recording their thinking in the way that works best for them, makes the best sense for them, because it's their journal.
Exactly. I told them what I wanted to make sure they included, and they could do it whatever they wanted. The second step was I told them if they went ahead and did some research to go ahead and do a design. I mean, it's part of the process. What do you want it to look like? And those are my favorite thing because they are very detailed, and we've been talking about sketching and labeling. So
that's the design of the food plot area.
Yes, this is what he would want it to look like.
Nice.
And then we show them to the class and share. Let's see if this one's, I was trying to find one that was a little, right. So they all seem to want to do rows. A lot of the ones I've seen have been, have different things planted in rows. One little boy even took it a step further and he created a 3D.
Oh, wow.
And a 3D thing where he cut paper and had us flip it open to see the different food that were under it. And I didn't tell him to do that. It's amazing what they come up with.
Right. Because you gave them freedom.
Yes, they got to have some choice. That is, if you give them an idea and let them run with it on their own, that's when you see the best work.
That is so cool. I absolutely love that. Now, and you have students that are face-to-face, and then you have students that are online only learners. And then you had your first 2 weeks of school, you had that code yellow where half the students one day and half the students the other day. So you're in the midst of this chaos just like everybody else, right?
Yes, I am.
But just still finding a way to, tell me really briefly, and I know I need to let you go. I'm concerned about people that may feel like in the current struggles with all the learning, the online teaching and all of that, that maybe this is just the time to, if you're just beginning the STEM process, well, maybe we just should put that aside for now. What would you say to people that are worried that maybe they just can't be bothered with STEM right now in addition to everything else?
I would say if someone said to me, why now? My answer would be, why not now? In a world that we are living in, we have got to create children that will become adults that can problem solve. And when you give them these type of experiences and this hands-on learning activities, they learn for themselves how to be problem solvers. And then that can be used later in life. And if we don't start now, when is it going to start?
That is right. I agree with you completely. And I thank you tremendously for taking the time to talk to us today. And would like to, in future presentations or webinars later in the year, like to come back and take a look at what you're doing with that food plot area, what the students have created. I think that would be neat to follow up on if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I don't mind at all. And I'm sure they would love to tell you all about it.
They would. Well, thank you, Ms. Shannon, and I will talk to you again later.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ms. Ingram.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for being here today. I hope that you feel encouraged and maybe a little inspired and excited. Most of all, I hope you feel encouraged because you deserve that. Thank you for how hard you're working. And please remember, post questions and comments and we will answer you. We will help you in every way that we can. You are not in this alone. And please come back every week. Keep a check on the platform because there will be new webinars, new presentations going up every week with lots of topics. We're going to just hone in on things that will help you with what you need to have that STEM and STEAM approach happening in your classroom. Thanks again for being here.